Hello and welcome to Economic Forum. My name is Tawanda Gudlanga. This week our focus is on the 2019-2020 farming season, and with me is Professor ISHEUNESU MUPEPEREKI. He's from the Department of Soil Science and Agricultural Engineering in the Faculty of Agriculture at the University of Zimbabwe. Professor, it's good to see you.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to also join you for this program.
Let's have an update on the 2019-2020 farming season. How has it been looking out?
I think this has been one of the most difficult seasons. I can speak at least from personal experience. The rains came late, and when they finally came, it was so far into the season that most people had given up. Those who had tried to plant, germination was very poor. There was also problems for the people who had irrigation because the power was not coming regularly. Sometimes the power would come with a single or only two phases, and the motors would not operate. So it was a very difficult season. The other issue also is that we had a rearrangement in the main program, which is called Command Program, which now was handed over to the banks, hopefully for more efficiency and so on. But I think it took a lot of farmers, a lot of effort to get onto the other side, which is to the bank-funded, program. And I think for a very long time, perhaps farmers could not access the inputs that they needed. And so that also was a challenge, apart from the issue of fuel. I still meet farmers who still are looking for fuel for their, farming operations. So there was a lot of trouble and, hard, experiences for farmers.
What is it that could have been within our grasp, Professor? I know with climate change, rains have been erratic. The Met Department has predicted, normal to below normal rainfall. But is there anything that could have been within our grasp to sort of alleviate the scenario that we are in right now?
Well, I'll speak as an African. And my first point would be to say what was or should be always in our grasp is to look at other ways of dealing with drought situations. We know about Mukwerera, and it's a Shona word that to people, they almost just laugh, and politely say, Mukwerera, this is boy. Surprisingly, as I stood in some of the fuel lines, queues, and some of the queues for inputs, I made round just to ask, ndokupi kwa makaita Mukwerera. Most people say, kana mondo zirikuti triple leave, kweda hakuna kuitwa. And actually, at one point, I took the bold step of actually going to one of the senior Mondoros to go and find out what the problem was. And I was told, you are the first person to come here. Nobody has come here since August when we expect people to come and do these ceremonies. I was shocked. Even up to now, I cannot understand which went over the whole country that we did not do some of those ceremonies that traditionally we do so that we get rains.
But the issue of drought it did not characterize this particular farming season. Even the years preceding that, we've had droughts. You are speaking of the traditional aspect. Is it that it's actually decelerated some more, or something else completely did not happen?
You know, Gudlanga, what is happening in this country is that basically we think that we can follow the technology of the Western world, and there has been, and this is true, when you go to the traditional leader and they say ndakuna mata, this could be the chief, this could be the sub. We must talk about these things. That means that the whole community now cannot do the traditional rites to do the things that are required to prepare for the season. And this is rampant. More and more traditional leaders are abandoning because they've now been proselytized. In other words, they've joined various churches and so on. And so that side, all I am saying is, while we could cloud seed if the clouds were suitable, while we could do all the other things, do what they call it, the rain harvesting, you know, those are the things that can be done from the science point of view. We also should and must mobilize all the resources that have allowed black people to exist and survive for thousands and thousands of years. It can't be idle talk. We can't, in the last 100 years, have suddenly discovered that the Western ways of doing things are the ones that work. When we have a record of thousands of years where our own ways of doing things have worked. So that is the point.
So in other words, what you are saying is that indigenous knowledge systems have been discarded. But we do hear the narrative that there should be adoption of climate smart agriculture and other means to mitigate against food insecurity. Was the case? What was the uptake, particularly in this particular season, with regards to issues around the indigenous knowledge?
I think I want to take you back to say farmers are just like a football team. They need also their own coach. I usually make reference to Dynamos and our famous coach, Callisto Pasua, who is now still doing the waves in Malawi. The team, that is the farmers, require solid coaching, and that should come from the extension services. The technical extension services, we have government, we also have the various companies, agricultural companies. Those need to be at hand all the time with those technologies, whether they be traditional, with those technologies that may be climate smart. But I think myself that the climate smart technologies, most of the ordinary farmers out in the sticks are not familiar with them.
Professor, let's talk about technical support and other key issues in the next segment. Join us after the break as we continue to look at the season 2019-2020. Welcome back to the program. Late rains, the incapacity from the banks, and of course failure to regard the spirits of the land, all but are some of the issues that have affected the 2019-2020 farming season. And with us in the studio is Professor ISHEUNESU MUPEPEREKI from the Faculty of Agriculture at the University of Zimbabwe to unpack for us where we are currently and what the prospects are in this particular season. Before we went to the break, you spoke about the role of banks now leading in the Command Agriculture program, and you are saying that they are not up to the task. What are the key challenges?
Maybe we can't quite say they're not up to the task. We are simply saying that it hasn't worked as we would have expected. The banks make farmers sign contracts. Banks are very clear, and everybody knows that a contract with the bank, if you don't pay, the banks will foreclose, right? But now what we have heard is that challenges with the inputs, access to inputs. A good example, which I can speak from personal experience, has been fuel, diesel fuel. Farmers got seed, farmers got chemicals, many of them got fertilizers, but they did not get diesel. Up to now, there are many farmers still queuing for diesel to do the 2019-2020 season. Now, obviously, this is March now. So you can see that is a major challenge. Even if the rains had been good, with that scenario, we would still have put perhaps less land under the plow than we could have expected. So I know that the whole issue also, we are told it has to do with foreign currency. For instance, the shortage of fuel, we need foreign currency to purchase fuel, and this has not been. So priorities this time have not been with farmers. Farmers don't seem to have been prioritized, at least in terms of, there's fuel which is being available for those with free funds and so on.
But the argument is that farmers by now should have, come together come up with certain measures to deal with some of the challenges. For example, there are farmer organizations that are in existence in Zimbabwe. There's need for crowdfunding, or they could adopt crowdfunding as a solution. Why is it that some of these alternatives are not being pursued and everything seems to be waiting upon government intervention, or at least in this case, the banks?
I think you should also realize that when we say farmers, we are talking about a lot of professional people who are still working in their professions, who took up land. It was good, it was important that they took up land, because land had to be physically taken up by various people. But it takes a lot of effort and money and resources to turn good people who are not farmers into good farmers. And this is the scenario that we have. We all went in. I hear people saying, the people took land, and so on. There's nobody who went onto the land in the land reform program on the card of being a good farmer. The whites, when they came, and I've heard that from them firsthand, soldiers from the Second World War, rewarded to be given farms in Rhodesia. They did not know nothing about farming. But the white government invested in turning them into farmers through connects, through dedicated, consistent, sustained programs of technical support.
But one key thing, Professor, that maybe you will agree with me is that they then concentrated on farming. But here you are, like you are saying, that the ones that are doing farming in Zimbabwe are primarily employed somewhere, and then are taking farming as more of a secondary issue. Is that not where we are having a challenge when it comes to doing agricultural business?
Absolutely. You've put the nail on the head. Having taken our land, having taken possession of our land, of the farmland, we needed, and we still need to, come up to re-engineer the farming practice. If you have got a lot of farmers who are absentee landlords, right? How do you arrange things so that farming continues? It means we must sit down and rearrange the way we do agriculture. We can't do it the Rhodesian way, because the Rhodesians were not technical people in town. They were people who came and they sat on the land. We are now trying to redo the Rhodesian. If you look now what is happening, on a lot of farms, we are inviting people to partner. The partners are coming, yes, but what it also says is that our own people, just perhaps as a response to the point you have raised, cannot raise action to the level that the Rhodesians were doing. So maybe we're bringing back some of the Rhodesians to come and put up, pivots and so on and so forth, and it's not working. We need to re-engineer our own African-led agriculture, and this perhaps is where we want to see, with the coming up now of what is called Education 5.0 in the universities, where we are saying that we must absolutely get our hands dirty, where we now need to sit down and put together, when I say re-engineer, I'm thinking about the farmer is not there. Who is there? Who are the technical managers on the farms? The ones that were working for the white people were working under close supervision. The ones that we have now are working under no supervision. Because the professor at the university, the accountant is the private company and so on. So, but the land is ours and we must move forward. We cannot hand it back just because we can't do it the Rhodesian way. So the challenge I am putting forward to Zimbabwe now is to mobilize the academics, mobilize the technocrats, mobilize the policymakers who sit down at a table and say, in the real historical circumstances where the land occupation has led to people who cannot be, because they are the same people who are running the country, by the way. They are the politicians, they are the technocrats, they are the CEOs, they are the ones who have the land. It was okay because we bought into we took our land. But now we must engineer a way of making agriculture work. And that requires that we must find ways of training people who can work on the land. There's no need to dispossess those who have the land. They've not committed a crime. They are simply not on the land because they're also running, our parastatals. These are the people who have got the land. So that is the challenge which is there. I think we've put our finger on why things are not working. Things are not working partly because the people who are supposed to be the farmers are absentee farmers. Or some people will say, perhaps derogatorily, they are cell phone farmers. But you can't blame them. That is the situation. And you cannot say that take away the land from them. We did not take our land from the white men because we knew how to farm. We took it back because it is our land. And the challenge for us black people now in Zimbabwe is to find ways of making agriculture work again. The African way, our own way.
But of course, are cell phone farmers being capacitated through extension services? Let's talk about it in the third and final segment. Welcome to the third and final segment of this episode on Economic Forum, where we are focusing on the 2019-2020 farming season. And with me is Professor ISHEUNESU MUPEPEREKI. Now, Professor, you spoke about technical support being a critical cog in this whole agricultural value chain. To what extent have we harnessed the skill that we have in that regard?
I think we have not done very well, and that is putting it mildly. I have said already, referring to a football team which requires a coach, and I've said the coach is the extension arm. I've made reference to the colonial connex, conservation and extension. If you look now, our extension department requires capacitation. Just talk about transport. Midudu Duma Pascoro. Do I famba na mdomeni vaya vakacreate what we call the master farmers. If you remember the Madara, the master farmers. Take with the farmer. This is the domain. Following up. Apa Madara Zoida say, what about this and so on. Now our extension services do not have that capacity. For various reasons. It's not their fault. Right? Resource constraints and so on. But the point still is that the farmer, therefore, does not have all the technical support he needs. If we look also now at the universities, for instance, there are many faculties of agriculture, and I come from one of them. But I want to come up honestly and say, I don't think we have used, you excuse the term, our people in the universities, in the agriculture faculties, to help, to support, to provide technical support for the farmers.
So what are you doing with all that capital that is coming from the
What is good now is that with the coming of the new dispensation, we now have a new model for education, which is called Education 5.0. Previously, in the colonial system, which was creating workers, you did teaching, you did research, you did outreach. Three things. And you wrote a thesis which was to be written in good English, and you got a degree. The new system now is Education 5.0. We are going to teach, yes, we are going to do research, yes, we are going to do outreach, yes, but we are going to teach our students to innovate, to create new things, and then to industrialize. That way we will have graduates who, when they get out of the university, they want to turn their knowledge into goods and services. Graduates, after being kept, they will have gone through a system where they have been cooked, quote unquote, to desire, to be desirous, to make things, to make goods, to provide services, to, if you want, be entrepreneurs. Deliberately, by the education system. We are confident that if we can put momentum into that, Vision 2030 will be achievable. And beyond that, we are going to have a lot of industries being turned. And that philosophy is based also on a heritage-based teaching and learning. We must teach our students about the things that God gave us in this land.
But we need quick results, really, to deal with the challenges that are befalling us. Looking at the scenario now, the 2019-2020 season, to what extent are we going to be able to harness Education 5.0 to actually deal with this gap? Because obviously we are faced with something that is really going to be of a huge magnitude in terms of food insecurity in the country.
No, there's no shortage of strategies. You know, we have Joint Operations Command, right? When there is a crisis in the land, those gentlemen and ladies sit down and craft strategies to deal with immediate dangers. And that's what needs to be done. And I think to a greater or lesser extent it's already being done. Strategies being taken up by the Ministry of of Finance and the other supporting ministries to import maize and do all those other things. That is being done. The Education 5.0 is a long-term strategy, but it is a strategy that we are implementing so that going forward, automatically we are going to produce Zimbabweans, educated Zimbabweans who are already primed to produce goods and services, to make things that we can export and earn the much needed foreign currency.
But innovation for me, is a low-hanging fruit. Why is it not being accelerated in the tertiary institutions now, and even as part of a refresher sort of course for the extension officers on the
right? You have done. You may want to know that government, the new dispensation government, has already put up, I think almost all the state universities now have got what we call innovation hubs. Right now, our last year students who graduated in August, right now are in innovation hub, working on their projects which show promise to be turned into marketable goods and services. Some of them, for instance, are in ICT tools or apps that can be used by farmers to access information, sitting in the field, seeing some makonye, and be able to Google and get information about to deal with that right now. So the immediate thing, the acceleration that is happening is that we already have, government has put a lot of money into the universities to create what are called innovation hubs. The innovation hubs where these have already been built are functional. I come from the University of Zimbabwe. If you go there, you go and find young people who are already working on that. So that is one thing. The other thing that needs to be done, which I think requires urgent attention, is obviously to capacitate the extension. Extension needs to be capacitated in various ways. Not only do they need capacitation in terms of resources, they also need the capacitation in terms of training, retraining, induction and, in-service training and all that. That requires resources. The resources are limiting, obviously, but again, like you say, we may have to put our money where our mouth is. And I think in terms of food security, that's where our mouth is. And I'm sure government in its wisdom will see that they need to put more resources there.
And is it too late for rain-making ceremonies now?
The rain-making ceremonies have already been done, or were done when they were done, and the weather responded as it has responded. I'm aware this is things that we Africans don't talk a lot about these things, but maybe Zimbabweans need to know. People, when things were looking really bad, by New Year, some people went out of their way to do the right things. The right things were to approach the necessary centers of our heritage, where we are able to connect Nemepo Zedu. And the season is turned out that now we are having rain. Maybe what we should have had is plan B. What do we put in the ground? Like people are thinking now that we must be putting beans. We should be. But what that means is also farmers now need to be guided. You see? It may well be that now our extension, including from the university, we are not primed to do those things. But going forward, I think we will need to put in place emergency plans like we are doing with coronavirus. If we don't get a single case, that's okay, but we are ready. The kits are there. The same thing should be done with agriculture, especially as it is our food security. No food, no life.
Professor MUPEPEREKI, thank you so much for finding time to come through to Economic Forum.
Thank you very much.
Our guest there was Professor ISHEUNESU MUPEPEREKI from the Department of Soil Science and Agricultural Engineering in the Faculty of Agriculture at the University of Zimbabwe. And our focus this week was on the 2019-2020 agricultural season. We've come to the end of the program. Join us again next time. My name is Dawanda Gudlanga.